All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started. We are hitting capacity. Uh, Welcome. My name is Micah Canfield, and I would like to again welcome you guys to the first Train the Trainer webinar of 2025. And we are delighted for all of you to join us today for this preview. Before we dive in, just a few quick housekeeping notes. If you would, please mute yourself for the time being, and we will have an opportunity for each of you to ask questions at the end of the presentation. If you do have a question while someone is presenting, please put it in the chat, and one of our moderators, Wayne, he'll be sure to get those to the speaker, and we'll have a Q&A session after each short presentation. Before we get started, I want to recognize some of our team that is here on this webinar today. We have my dad, Dr. Ken Canfield. We have Brock Griffin. We have Ron Nichols, Wayne Cinder, and Ryan DeBach, all of which will be active in the chat. So feel free to engage with them there as they are engaging in the chat and waiting to present some of the things that they've been tasked with. And last, myself, I will be co-hosting this event today. And I wanted to start this off by sharing a little bit of the history, of my history with the National Center for Fathering and Fathers.com. One of the earliest memories I have is setting up a National Center for Fathering book table at a Promise Keepers event alongside my brother. I was I was actually 7 years old at the time, my earliest memory. And that moment and the many book table duties that followed shaped me in ways that I could have never predicted. For one thing, I learned how to make a book deal. Plenty of those conference attendees wanted to bundle books together for a discount, and those early experiences, bartering and sales, planted my love for entrepreneurship that I will forever be grateful for. As a teenager, I was privileged, had the opportunity to support many siblings and my dad and my mom, co-hosting fathering seminars and attending numerous Father of the Year events across the country. And between my dad and I, joining countless father-son backpacking trips and river rafting trips. And now, as a father myself, I get to live out those joys, those opportunities, those responsibilities, continuing the legacy that was modeled for me over the last few decades. And that brings us now to the beginning of this year. This past winter, my dad and I began conversations which led to a big question. And that was, what would it look like to revisit decades of proven material and trainings and possibly refresh it for seasoned leaders as well as new and emerging leaders in the fathering space? And that effort then resulted in this last spring redesigning and relaunching the website. And we are on the verge of launching our new global learning management system, which we believe will be the resource for father leaders. And I'll be sharing a little bit more about that later on in this webinar. But for now, I would like to now hand over things to who is one of our longest serving members on our team, and that's our senior writer, Brock Griffin, who's going to share with you guys a little bit more about the history of NCF as well as the role that he has played over the years. So Brock, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Micah. I guess I've been here one of the longest who'd been here. I've been here since part of the center since 1991, which means I'm old, right? My role has mostly been about writing and editing books. We had a radio program for more than 20 years, articles and blogs that continue today, and those have kind of meshed with emails. Back in the 90s, it was a father fax. I don't know if anybody remembers that, that we faxed out overnight to thousands of people. So yeah, I mean, I'm estimating through the years, I think the radio show, we ran a lot of repeats, but
Yep.
there were more than 3,000 radio scripts through the years, and I suppose, if you count up all the weeks we sent out emails or wrote blogs that became emails, those would number, 1,200, 1,500, something like that. So there's been a lot of work, and it's been a real privilege to work with people like Ken and be part of his books, 10 or 12 books that I've helped with Ken through the years. So that's kind of my role. And one of the real pleasures, in addition to working with Ken, is working with outside people who have great insights and stories to tell, and putting those into words for our audience to read. And Ron has been part of that through the years, and Ryan has helped with that, and numerous other people. And a lot of times people who connect with us through training events like this can step into some of those roles. So if any of you are interested in that, I'd love to connect, through the chat, or you can contact me through the website, and we can get that going too. So yeah, that's kind of my role, just kind of a lot of behind the scenes stuff, but writing and editing. A lot of times it'll have Ken's name on it, or maybe nobody's name on it, but it's kind of just been my pleasure to be part of all this work for that many years. So yeah, and I mentioned Ken. A lot of you know who he is. I guess he's next up on the schedule. So Ken is our founder at the National Center, kind of the grand poobah of fathering in a lot of ways. Researcher, author, speaker. Yeah, you can read his bio, but yeah, just a great guy. Here's Ken with the next step.
Thanks, Brock. Someone, can you get the grand poobah grounds put on my? No, I'm just kidding. Well, it's my delight to be with you guys. I'm thinking that this is not only inaugural, but it's an opportunity to meet you. We've been concerned about the leadership across the globe, what's going on in the fathering space. Having lived and worked in it 40 years, my professional training academically as well as practically has been there. But also I've been in the crucible, and I just kind of want to share a few things to get you caught up with what I've experienced. And it could be put in this way. Let's see, let me get, where did that go? You know what? I need to do this. Okay, guys, here we go. There we go. So nothing like glasses that'll change your life. This is, oh, whoops. Let's see. This is the Canfield clan. There's a pile of us. It seems that you can't be an expert unless you're in the crucible. Well, look at the crucible I'm in. Now with not just 5, but 16 grandchildren. Guys, I'm broke. It is a time where, you know, you want to invest in little things, help with a little education, a little opportunity, a little birthday gift. And I had no idea I would find myself in this space. And this has been a journey that has really been, I think, the rubber meeting the road, you know, putting what I know both academically and practically to the forefront and seeing what works and what doesn't. I do want to share something personal, because as in the fathering movement, I think Ron has, and you'll meet him in a minute, modeled this well. Being open and vulnerable is very important. About 6 years ago, actually, it's 6 years ago, this happened. The mother of our 5 children together, Dee, passed away. Here I was, and all the children were grown and so forth, but having 40 plus years of marriage, it kind of put me in a different space where I now was the only grandparent that was there. And so I knew the power of a grandmother. In fact, I remember Dee vividly saying, Ken, this father-daughter summit that you started, it's had, you know, incredible power. And I'll speak to you about what we learned from that back. But she has been gone 6 years, and I had the fortune of being able to mentor and help so many over the years. And guess what, guys? After a time of grieving, I ended up marrying a woman that I had been involved mentoring and encouraging her. She's a psychologist. And so I remarried, and I was celebrating 5 years this past June. It's been a delight. And wouldn't you know it, I married someone that had deep heart history in the fatherhood space. In fact, the way I met Michelle was when she was working on a research project just with clients she was caring for and helping the fathers of these young women she was counseling. And so she started what you see there, the ABBA Project. You're going to hear more about that too. This is where she gathered dads of her clients, all of which had a heart to reconnect with their daughters or to connect for the first time. And she, over a period of a year, would meet with them once a month and had incredible results. She came to be known as the Dad Whisperer by a media commentator. And you can find her, just Google her, and you'll see the work she's done. It's been incredible. So I've got a team partner that now we are serving together and looking forward to being a part of the fathering movement, much like Dee was and continues to be, even though she's not here. So that gives you a little background to say this. I took a little space, you know, when you have someone pass away and you assimilate a new wife. I've been through some transitions that, are natural, but not easy. Nevertheless, over this past decade, I spent some time at a university setting, continuing to do research, particularly on how fathers are impacting not only families, but communities and the culture. Much of that research led me to Singapore, to Poland. I've been traveling internationally, nurturing leaders that Ron Nichols had trained years ago, and continuing to do what I'd say front edge work that is so needed. I ended up in that time consulting with both state and federal agencies in the United States to just give them, some insight on the metrics and how are we measuring what work we're doing and how do we take that forward. And then, of course, I get into that golden stage. And, in the research, as you look at fathering satisfaction, you've got kind of a curvilinear, what I'd say, shape. When you become a father, if you've been involved and actively involved, it's the highest time of fathering satisfaction. And as you begin to send those kids off into whatever educational setting, there's a little bit of a dip because you have to adjust in your whole fathering practices. And you hit that pre-adolescent teenage years, it actually is one of the lowest time of your fathering satisfactions, but it gets better because as you send those kids away, where if it's to a university, to military, to vocation, whatever it is, there's a bump up. And when you become a grandfather, and my oldest grandson's 19, oldest grandchild, it achieves almost the same height as it was when you became a dad. And so looking at this curvilinear relationship, I think is interesting. It's similar to the trajectory of my life professionally. I started with PassionFathers.com in 1990, and we saw just meteoric rise. This was before anybody was really in that space. I started with Brock and others in a radio space, and then just doing journal writing, and then practical, what I call popular writing, to begin this movement. I then saw federal authorities in the United States take note. We're spending billions of dollars to, address fatherlessness. And so they redirected some resources, and I think strategically in a good way. And then, we saw everybody and their dog jump into the fathering space. People that were well-meaning but didn't have the experience. And they did some very creative things. And so over the past, I'd say 15, 20 years, we've seen a lot of stuff. Not all of it has been very effective, but still, whatever is done in the right attitude with integrity, it does produce. And here we are now. What I'm doing, you'll see to the right, and there'll be a few things as a result of you participating today will give you access to. I've been working in prison settings. First in Angola prison, what is called the bloodiest prison in America in Louisiana, Parchman, other prisons, and most currently in Arkansas, in the middle of the United States right now, once a week, and Mike has been attending with me. I'm going and working, and you see by the picture, dedication. When you can help a man that has been incarcerated for whatever issue, deal with his own father loss and wound, not that they all have a father loss and wound, but 99% of them do. And if we're truthful, all of us have some father void. And the way they chose to fill that void wasn't healthy. You see addictive behaviors, you see difficult mental health issues and so forth. Again, I'm reminded in the most difficult situations, the father voice and the father heart makes a difference. So with that enthusiasm, we're going to push things out and push it to the top. This research piece, which shows that attending to that father wound issue and giving them simple skills, right thinking and so forth, dropped the recidivism rate. This is what I did with Baylor University, from what is typical in the United States, from 45 to 55%, even higher in some places, to 4%. And so I believe there is, I don't want to call it a silver bullet, we'll call it a bronze bullet, okay? That if we ignite healthy fathering practices and behavior, we'll have healthier communities, families, and nations. I just want to stop then and say this. It's my delight to invite, and I did so at great sacrifice on his part, who I really respect, who has trained over 1,000 leaders over 15 years at fathers.com. And Ron Nichols brings a wealth of training trainers from a corporate level to us today. And I just want him to give you a little background so you understand the strategy we're going to use as we move the fathering movement forward. So please welcome Ron. Go ahead.
Thank you, Ken, and hello to all of you that are on this call. Frankly, it's a real honor. And Ken asked me to start off by sharing a little bit of background information, so I'm going to track quickly through some key areas: my fathering journey, my first fathering experience, some of my prior work experience that led to me going to work at the center, and then some highlights at the National Center. And Ken, just to kind of walk into this, I can sort of see you with that grand poobah hat that you mentioned. Ken and I had many great times together as we toured many places, sometimes solo, sometimes together. But starting with the question of your what is your fathering journey? I want you guys to all note, I want all of you to note that is really a great question. For dads or trainers, it's a great way to stir the father heart. It's a great way to connect with somebody else, just as a fellow traveler. And my fathering journey began as a son, as a little boy, and I was blessed. My dad was involved in my life. My mom and dad were both high achievers, but fortunately, family was a lifelong value for both of them. So my dad worked hard to be involved. He was a very busy man. I saw him as a hero and as a friend as I grew up. And I'm still to this day extremely thankful for what he gave to me. He is with Jesus now. I look forward to seeing him again someday. My dad, with his involvement, gave me tools, and those were tools to be a dad. He wasn't perfect as a dad, just like all of us. Our fathers were not perfect, but he did have great power. And the same with his dad. His dad wasn't perfect, but he had great power. And I had a conversation with my dad back when I started working with Ken. And I asked him, because I was very involved in high school athletics. Sports was a big deal to our whole family, certainly to my dad and me. I asked him why he made a great effort to come to all of my sporting events. And he kind of stopped in his tracks, and it was just one-on-one with him out in the backyard. And he told me about an event that shaped his life. And then he did something that really surprised me. He cried. I don't know about you guys, but I didn't see my dad cry very often. And what he told me after that is he said, I had an experience when I was a young teen going through high school, and I loved playing football. I wasn't fast, I wasn't big, but I loved the game. And in their high school, they had a routine when seniors played their last home football game. That's American football, so it's with helmets. And what they would do is they would bring the fathers of those senior boys playing their last home football game. They bring them down on the field, and they would give the dad the microphone to the public address system, and they would allow the dad to announce the son's name and the number and the position he played. And my dad had seen that tradition, so he looked forward to that. And when the microphone came to my granddad at first paused, and then he stumbled a little bit verbally, and he said, "My son's name is Dick Nichols. His number is 44." And he goes, I think he plays halfback. My dad was standing out there on the sideline, and it's amazing. This story still gets me after all these years. He said he felt like somebody stuck a knife right in his chest. And he cried again, and I cried. If I don't watch it, I might cry now. But so he said, I vowed at that time that I would always try to come to do the things that my dad did not do for me. So there was one of the tools that my dad showed. He took something that was hurtful, harmful, and we've all had that, and he turned it into a positive. Now let me shift gears to my first fathering experience. And that came when my wife of 3 years at the time met me at the door one day after I'd come home from work. I was a young man, 30 years old, trying to climb those corporate ladders. And she asked me a paralyzing question. She said, "Are you ready to be a dad?" She said, "Well, you better go sit down." And she said, "Because we're expecting triplets." And I did go sit down. And a joy that I had never known just filled my heart. We told everyone we were pregnant. And 5 months later, after those identical little girls were born alive, we lost them because they were too tiny that same day. We were devastated. We grieved. We were stunned. And my heart was broken. Yet at the same time, one of God's miracles, it was stirred about the opportunity to be a dad. And I yearned for more, and I didn't really know what that looked like. The medical community told us that we need to adopt due to the medical complications of delivering triplets on my wife. And it was tough. But we believed God had other plans, and he gave us 5 children, 3 boys, 2 girls. We loved, we loved raising our kids, and they're still around us all the time now. It was fun, hard, consuming, exhilarating, challenging. You guys who have kids can add your own words. And here I was working for the National Center for Fathering. Was I a perfect dad? Well, here's what my family did. At times when I'd blow it as a dad, they would call me, "Hey, Mr. National Center for Fathering." That's all they needed to say. And I was humbled frequently when I blew it. But did I enjoy trying harder the very next moment? Absolutely. My father heart just burned. It was a gift that I was given by God. And I just came back from a trip with my daughter's family. She lives down in Arkansas. We traveled out to Colorado to tent camp. And I say tent with emphasis because we laid on the ground at night. We camped out in Rocky Mountain National Park at about 8,000 feet. And I live at 900 feet in Kansas City. So there is a difference. But we had a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old in our tent along with 4 other people. And it was a spectacular, exhilarating, exhausting time. What a blast. My granddaughter's here in our home right now, and she may burst in unbeknownst here. So be prepared. Okay, a bit about my prior work experience. I had some great corporate opportunities to develop my experience in training and development. God opened doors for my growth. I spent time with some great corporations, Frito-Lay, Hallmark Cards, and others prior to coming to the National Center. And in all of those organizations, I had a chance to work extensively with training adults in their professional skills, communication, their leadership development. And I was given some opportunities to learn about the train the trainer process. And I worked with really good people and very challenging projects throughout, but I knew in my heart that there was more. And the father heart that God had placed in me continued to burn. Ultimately, after much prayer, I left the corporate world because I just had to go do something that I felt I was being led to. And when Ken moved the National Center for Fathering from the little town of Manhattan, Kansas, to Kansas City, I said, "Oh, gotta go." So I left that working world in the corporations, and little did I know how much God would use mightily all the things that I learned in the corporate world. So a few highlights of NCF when I was there, and then I'll turn it back over to Ken. One of the highlights was meeting men everywhere, all over the country and internationally as I trained. These men all had varied backgrounds. As a son and as a father, they were focused, but others needed direction. They were confused. But they all came with that father heart that Ken mentioned early. And their questions were, how do I become a better dad? And some of them said, how do I help others improve their fathering? Well, my opportunities as the director of training included establishing training programs that we built around Ken's research, his books, his training experiences. We got to design and deliver programming for faith arenas, secular community, for social services, activities, corporate meetings, any place we could get in. And our message was well received. It had favor on it. It wasn't me, it was the message and the heart of the Father being stirred. And we learned that using the delivery experience to dads, fathering reached across all ethnicities, faiths, backgrounds, situations. The power of it just blew me away. So as we got going, feeling the heart of the Father, those guys that we met, we started thinking more about train the trainer. And I believe it still today, when you couple that father heart with strategies and skills to communicate, that God will use it to touch many. Malachi 4, 5, and 6 talks about the power that turning the hearts of fathers to the children and the hearts of children to their fathers has. And I have had an opportunity to see that firsthand for many years, and I am just thankful. So more about some of those experiences, but back to Ken.
Thanks, Ron. Just reflecting on what Ron said, knowing Ron's background also gives texture and depth. Not only have I met Ron's father, who's now deceased, but I know Ron's children, and I see him as a fellow pilgrim in this adventure of fathering. And what we believe is, regardless of your situation, and there are fathers all over the map with difficult situations, I believe that if we focus on training and equipping leaders, of which we have determined your participation today kind of puts you in that camp, that there can be significant difference made in the lives of those you affect, notwithstanding your own life as well. And so with that, I want to move into what we are going to open up to you as leaders. And I believe this will be a great help to you, because the research not only has gone on, but it continues every day. I pour through data, and I'll just bring you a little bit closer to that as soon as I can get this technology to obey me. There we go. So what we have right now, and I'm going to give you kind of an overview of the fathering movement as I see it. I think we're at a time where there are problems. Let's see. There are problems, prospects, and potential. Okay, what is a constant is still there. Fatherlessness and the unfathered are constants. Now, you could argue that, are we doing better? I think in some areas we really are. Just the fact that we can connect with this technology tool, which we didn't have in the past, is going to help fuel our efforts. But fatherlessness, as I am seeing it with the men I'm working with right now, and that's just one group, it's still rampant. You see generational tsunamis just taking out men's potential, and it really has a devastating effect. And I remember very vividly, I was in Philadelphia years ago with the mayor, Wilson Good, an African-American leader. And as I was talking about the negative social sequelae or consequences of fatherlessness, he came up to me afterwards and very kindly said to me and reproved me. And he's probably 15 years my senior. And he said, Ken, I don't like that word fatherlessness. What kid do you know chooses, I want to be a fatherless kid? Come up with a different term. And I was just, stopping dead in my tracks. He's right. So whether it's fatherlessness, I understand the popularity of that, or being unfathered. And see, that applies to all of us. There's still a constant out there that we can overcome if we do good and right things. Now, the funding and resources to accomplish this work, they're limited. And I think they're even getting what I would say more scrutinized. And that's what we want to help you with. When you have good measures and metrics that show the difference you make in whatever program it is, and get that to the right people who do control pocketbooks and treasuries, those resources become loose. I remember working with a drug court, and when they found that one of our curricula, Quenching the Father Thirst, helped dads first have three things: more civil interactions with the mother of their child. And these were men who weren't married, many of them, some were. And then, secondly, they had more involvement with their children just by attending and being a part of a prescribed and ordered by the judge in some cases course. And then finally, increasing their child support. Well, for many years, it was a no-brainer. This got funded, and anytime it was talked about with committees, they said, oh, this is an investment in helping those who want to be a better father, but may lack the skills and need the help of a community. I think the fresh strategies and tools that have emerged, we're using one of them right now. To the extent that we can stay in touch, I'm a part of count them, 4 small groups of men participating and keeping one another encouraged, accountable, and open to insights that collectively they gain, all because of this. And without this, yeah, we had Skype, but that was kind of an overseas deal that wasn't used internally, nationally. Now, and with this device, as we know, you can be on anytime, anywhere. And if you query those men that I've been participating in these small groups with, they would say, this is kind of like a lifesaver, a help in time of need. And then finally, I would say this, just look around. The hunger for healthy father engagement is increasingly recognized and growing. We have quantified it in the United States that we are dropping easily $125 billion a year just to take care of the immediate cost of fatherlessness. When you talk about aid to dependent children, which is needed, when you talk about juvenile court and the incarceration, unfortunately, of too many juveniles that are there because they haven't had a mentor or father figure and their dad's out of the picture, many times incarcerated. And so this quantification has become, very clear in the minds of those who were opposed to father involvement. And when you look at how the health system has moved from, and I'll tell you a quick story of one of my colleagues, Dr. Vivian Gadsden. This is epic. She is at the University of Pennsylvania, and she was mentoring young intersetting fathers and men who were in the process of being a father. And she had a young underage couple, I think a 16 and a 17-year-old. Vivian's African-American and doing great work in the community, although her work spans beyond ethnicity. So they invited her, after giving counsel, to come to the birth of this child. So she said, and I remember talking to her on the phone, do you think I should do that? Absolutely. So she got all dressed up and she went in, and here she was, and Vivian was not married. She had not birthed the child herself. And here she is in the delivery room. And after the delivery, this young man, the doctor hands to this 17-year-old young man, to an unmarried, youthful 16 and 17-year-old couple. He can't even talk. He is so immersed in, you could call it the magic, the aura, or the divine nature of becoming a dad. And he holds that child, and she just watched the attachment. It was powerful. She didn't expect this. He held that baby, rocked it, went over to the mother, who was still on stirrups laying, and said, babe, we got to do this again. Now, I know what you're thinking, but it's true. What happened right there? He got a taste of what the father power does in the heart of a masculine soul. And he responded that way. I never asked Vivian, did you pull yourself up off the floor or whatever? But there was, again, simply, the recognition of this. I see now the emergence of flourishing in fathering, and I'll explain what that is and why I put this out there, because you're going to hear this forthcoming in the next years. Are you flourishing in your fathering? I believe flourishing through models, mentors, discipleship in small groups is the key. Now, flourishing with models. I would ask you, who is your living model of being a father, grandfather, whatever your fathering situation is? Who is that model that you're seeking to take what I'd say bearings from? That is key. We need more healthy fathering models. And if you're a dad, I can just tell you, particularly with your young children, who's your hero? My dad. And of course, there's changes as they grow and so forth. But if you don't have a model, and I say living model, and I do believe historical models can be helpful, biographies are good, but a living model is needed, particularly in this day and age, then a mentor. I believe, being a natural father of five, that there are some men who've never birthed biological children who are father figures as profound and even more profound than natural biological fathers. We've got to recognize that, and we need to call them out in a positive way and honor them because we need them. The third is discipleship. It's interesting to me that in the faith community, there is intense interest about this whole fathering role and how does that play out in a moral, in a spiritual, and an ethical way. And I believe the strategy again is small groups. Now, I've done the big meetings. I've spoken, and Ron's been there, Brock's been there, to stadiums full of men. Hey, the stadium experience is like this. Fatherhood is like this. And why I believe fathering isn't a sprint, it's a marathon that we need to prepare for. So what are flourishing fathers? They're growing, budding, breaking out, expressing their fathering responsibility with heart, consistency, and, this is important, in community. Right now, there is what you would call the Global Flourishing Project. The Global Flourishing Project I'm a part of, this is a multi-year study on what constitutes flourishing in 22 countries. The first tranche of data just came out. And fortunately, there is in this a question about fathering. Now, I'm teasing out what the data is saying, but I believe that there are things that we can learn and glean from flourishing, and that's why we need to recognize that it's going to be important. And we're collecting data to feed to you to help you think through what are the components of flourishing. As a part of this call, not only are we going to send you the groundbreaking research that I've done with Baylor and incarcerated fathers, but the Global Flourishing Project Index. Now, foundational to flourishing is recognizing our history. Whether you're a son or a daughter, you have a history with a father or father figure, or in some cases, no father figure. How we navigate and process our heritage. And what is very important right now, the ACE scores, the adverse childhood experiences, the family of origin scores, and the father wound, attention to father wound, is a looming and continuing problem. Just as we have a constance of fatherlessness and the unfathered, this is something that needs to be addressed for all men, because all men are fathers or father figures. And as I said earlier, awakening the moral, the ethical, and spiritual attributes of fathering, we need to be tuned into that. I'm going to show you, and we're leading toward what I believe is going to be an opportunity for you to consider. We're going to offer a couple of days of live training to go through the metrics and resources that I'm going to show to you right here. This Quenching the Father Thirst, I have another study here from Fathering Court that was subject to an outside reviewer, is the one that produced more civil contact with the mother of the child, more child support, and more interaction with the child. We will be going through in a live event over 2 days this curricula. To the right or to your left, whatever, you're going to see something that we have not published. And that is this. The Father of the Year essay was an essay contest that we established in school systems, mainstream school systems, private school system. We collected over 1 million essays. I have a random sample of those essays, and you might know all those essays may not be the best because we asked children from 2nd grade to 12th grade following the American system to write an essay about what your father or your father figure means to you, recognizing not all have fathers. And these essays we brought together. This is one of the resources to introduce what we call the ICANS of fathering. There is nothing more gripping and powerful than reading the words of a child as they reflect on their dad, their daddy, their father, their pop. It is powerful. We have put this in a curricula that we're going to be in this live event, helping you establish wherever you are. In addition, the personal fathering profile, I've developed and used this and test all over. This has been the basis for an instrument that was used in multiple doctoral dissertations, many of which I served on the committee. And it is a 138 item inventory that will give you feedback on your fathering, personal feedback. I think this will be a tool that will help you guide in a personal way, perhaps fathers who are struggling with difficult situations, or just normal dads who want to move their fathering stature up a couple of notches because those fathers are flourishing fathers committed to growth. And finally, one of the things that we're going to have in this 2-day training, this maybe be one of the most powerful events of any that we have developed at the center. It's bringing a father and a daughter who's at least 12 years old and could be as old as 30 years old to a 1-day session where they assess the daughter and the dad. So the dad self-reports and the daughter gives her input. What are my dad's fathering strengths? And what do I wish we could do more of together? I'm telling you, we've had over 11,000 go through this event at various places across the United States and internationally, particularly in Poland and a few other places. And what this does is it brings fathers and daughters to an awareness and the reality that we need to stay committed to each other and our relationship. And what I would end by saying is this: in surveying those who attended this event, these daughters typically say, this has been the single most important day I've spent with my dad, as they unpack with honesty. And, you know, no dad's going to get upset if you're in a group of other dads. What do you mean I don't listen to you? He's not going to do that. The power of community is there. Now, as a part of this, we're going to use the techniques and the insights that Ron has honed. So if you are prompted to be a part of this, we'll tell you this is going to be in Kansas City, October 26th and 27th, a 2-day event. And Micah will tell you more. We're going to take the tried, tested experiences that Ron has honed and have those at the event to really challenge and equip you. And I want to turn it back to Ron and give you his collected insights. I don't think it'll take 15 minutes like me, but I'm just joking. Ron can synthesize and bulletproof stuff, bullet point and bulletproof it, because it is so good that you're going to gain a lot real quick. So Ron, back to you.
Hey, Ken, could we ask?
Working on the technology. Let's hold. I think there may be some questions.
Yeah, can I pop in here, Ken, and ask a couple questions?
Sure.
Yeah, this is, again, for those of you watching, my name is Wayne Stender. I get a chance to work with Ken and Micah and everyone at fathers.com. And one of the things that came up, Ken, in your presentation is looking for really a complete definition of what it means to be unfathered. Do you have anything on that? Any insight there?
Unfathered is there are areas in your life where you needed direction, support, and guidance, and you don't know what to do. If you're, let's say, a child of divorce, you never had your dad, nor did you observe him if he wasn't living in the home, how to shave, if you use the old school shaving cream and so forth, or change a tire. So unfathered are those areas where there is a desire in you and you look around and say, how come everybody else knows this, but I don't know it?
Awesome. That's great. The other question that came up from the chat was a question about a thing that's being done in the New York Department of Youth and Children Development, where they've created a fatherhood initiative that supports dads. Are you familiar with that? Have you worked on that at all? And what has your work been with that?
I don't know the specifics, but I have stood as a grant reviewer on, and I was a part of the first federal grants getting a push through the Senate and the House. But I know there are metrics that you need to have applied to that to show the benefit that you're providing long term. But specifics I don't have, that in mind. Although I may have reviewed what they've done in the past. I just don't know. And that's why this Train the Trainer is so important. I tell you, at this event, this live event, you'll meet others who may have been down the same road that you're on right now. And you're saying, hey, what's up with this? I will be there and be glad to look at whatever you bring to the table and give you more time.
I love that. Awesome. Well, any more questions, feel free to shoot them into the chat. We'll address them as we keep going. Ron, we'll pass it over to you and you can take it from here.
Okay, thank you, Wayne. I love those questions. I'm going to offer my opinions based on my experiences over the last 25 years, and I'm going to touch on some topics at a really high level. My hope and prayer is that you all can continue to move forward in your fathering journey. Be relentless in your heart, your ideals to make a difference to dads and those who can influence those. So we're going to talk real quickly about leadership and training dads and training trainers. So I'm kind of working a double side there because some of you may get involved in teaching others to teach. Some of you may just be involved in teaching dads. Both are powerful. And when you get an opportunity to feel the touch of moving men as they're moved by their own experiences, it will encourage you to do your best to make every effort. So, and Mike, I'm assuming we can get the slides up. Let's get that. If it's not up, leadership and training. There we go. First thing I'd recommend and emphasize is that you be sincere about caring for your trainees. You've got an opportunity and you need to think long term. This is a calling for them. It may start just in their family, but it could branch out to their friends, their community, and more. It impacts generations. Now, when you're up front or you're leading on whatever your format is, it's about them. It's not about you. And your focus on them will let them know how important fathering is to you. By that, let's be available for the coaching that they could need personally or using technology. As you train dads or train trainers, it is highly likely that you'll develop some relationships with those men. It's startling. I have relationships that are going on 30 years now from guys that just randomly came to our trainer training. You're given the opportunity to be an authority as a trainer. It's startling at times. It may catch you off guard, but you can use that power, that platform, to be a source of encouragement, to ask them questions, and also to minister in situations that you may not expect. You can help those guys grow in the skills that they really need. Those will be listening, caring. They're both relational skills and communication skills. Both are vital, and you'll be the key that'll demonstrate those essentials. They will watch you as a model. Michael, let's go on to the next slide. This slide, Effective Training Strategies, deals primarily with training others to teach, or the train the trainer model. You are the model. Show them what it looks like. If you're doing a live format, you're doing video. With the technologies now, there are endless creative ways to do it. But again, I want to recommend highly that you care about the format and the people that you've got on that format, and talk candidly about your own experiences as a trainer, the places where you've done well, the places where you've stumbled. I would recommend that if you're teaching other trainers, you establish an arena that allows them to practice the training format. We did videotaping of hundreds and hundreds of men practicing on a program. Then we taught people in the group to give them feedback. We provided feedback back to those gentlemen, and the group as a whole bonded very tightly. They were all in it together. It's easy to see that we all have different skills and gifts and teachings, but what came out is the heart of men. And the trainer needs to strive to find the best way to reach and teach those guys. And it's giving them an opportunity to own it as soon as they can possibly. Again, I'm going to mention a word, be relentless, relentless in your pursuit to reach the trainees. And as a trainer, you can ask the question to yourself, what's the best way that I can reach the trainees? What's the format? What's the content? What are the best ways to really stir their hearts? An example of that would be, are you using video or are you using live? Then ask yourself, what are the key skills that I need? What are the key skills that they need in order to do effective teaching? I'd be a disaster if we had to use some of the high technology that's nowadays without getting my skills in order. Even though I might know what I need to say, if I can't maneuver the technology, then I'm going to miss my opportunity. Let's go to the next slide, Micah. Thank you. One of the things that I've got to recommend is the whole idea of using stories. People use stories through time to tell important truths. We've already had stories talked about on this conversation. Jesus used stories in his parables. That's what they were. They have power, they're memorable, they reach across complexity, and they get the truth. And you as a trainer, you as a father trainer or train the trainer, you've got stories. All of your participants have stories. They are important. So I'd recommend searching your own background, your own heart, the things that have touched your life. Think about those. And then hone your craft in telling stories, candor, emotion, vulnerability, going for those true feelings, and very importantly, brevity. We can get lost in our stories, and hours later, when we finally draw to a close and we see our group of attendees sleeping out there, got to go for brevity. So again, think about stories, practice stories. To start your connection, and I want to emphasize this again with men, asking them about their stories, drawing them out about their stories is a great way to deal with that first connection. Okay, Micah, let's go on to the next slide. Some of the present models that lead to success. Again, the question, what are the skills that'll lead me to success? You're not doing it for yourself and how you look. You're doing it for the participants. What language do they speak? What's the environment they're in? What technology are they familiar with? What's their life? Think and be as immersed in the background of your attendees as possible. Again, I mentioned developing proficiencies in the platforms that you use. Give them an opportunity and take the opportunity yourself to practice your delivery and get feedback on how you're doing. And finally, I'm going to talk about character and integrity in just a couple of words. You are dealing with something as powerful as creating destiny in guys' lives and in generational destiny influences their children. And your character, the integrity that you show in your behavior can go a long way to making or breaking the message. Those are vital in how you conduct yourself. Okay, Wayne, I am going to ask real quickly, are there any questions that may have popped up? And then we'll go to Micah.
Yeah, Ron, I have a question just for myself. As you shared a little bit about your grandfather earlier on in the presentation, and you talked about sharing stories. I think some of the best stories or best lessons we learn are lessons that we learn from experiences that were challenging, but sometimes sharing what I would call maybe a challenge story, some might call it like kind of a negative story in our fathering. Oftentimes, I think we naturally gravitate towards sharing positive stories, stories of success or things of that nature, and then we kind of step into this. But you shared a story that was really challenging, and I wanted to ask you, how do you kind of ground yourself confidently to really share those challenging stories as we look to use them as teaching moments?
Great question. In a summary for that question, I would say, think about the stories that touched you. And then what worked for me is I would write them out and I would reread, rewrite. Brock was really helpful. We had to limit our presentations on the radio to 3 minutes or less. And so brevity, brevity, brevity. What is the most important thing about the story? But do not lose the emotion and don't be afraid of the emotion. I've seen guys stumble through stories, and I'll tell you a story about stories real quickly. I had a trainer, and this again was probably 20 years ago, a man named Don who when he was going through Train the Trainer, and he talked about a key event in his life where his daughter came home to him and she was just broken. She'd been raped. And he was standing in front of us telling about what he felt. And he said, I wanted to kill the guy.
Mm.
And then he found out that his daughter was pregnant. And he said, you've got to get an abortion. And she kept the baby. And a year later, Don reached out to me, sent me a picture of his brand new granddaughter sitting on his lap. And he said, I have never been happier. He said, I cannot believe the redemption in this entire process. He wept, I wept, and he was telling this in front of a class as well later on when we were probing some of the best practices in Trainer, and everybody wept. I mean, there were elements of the future that you cannot imagine. So think about it, write it down, think about brevity, and go to the places that are tender, because that's what guys want to hear.
That's great. Thanks so much for that, Ron. I really appreciate that. Well, I'll let you, Ron, kind of take the next step here and introduce Micah as we continue on.
Okay, well, Micah has deep experiences as a son and now as a father, and he is also one of the fresh voices, one of the energizers, a guy who's comfortable with technology, which all I can do is admire people like that as I stand out in the distance knowing that technology is running faster than I'll ever get there. So I'd like to give you a standing ovation, Micah, but I'll just say, here's Micah.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Ron. Thank you for that presentation. I tell you what, it means a lot to me to be in the presence of so many poobahs during this presentation. So just want to share with you guys, as a new dad, now 13 and a half months in, and also being the uncle to 30 nieces and nephews that are at different stages of maturity, I see this as a unique window of opportunity this current season. It's a season where I am seeing not only for myself, but also in conversations with siblings. That's the choices that we make and the habits that we form. They set the course for the family's future. And it's during these early years where, you know, the efforts that we put forward are worth investing in intentionally. And so that's why, in partnership with our team and several international collaborators and drawing on the depths of resources that we have access to, that at the end of this month that we are launching a new course called The First 1,000 Days of Fathering. This course has actually been highly requested through several different inputs, not only formally but also informally, saying, "Hey, what currently exists out there, and what can we have access to for our own fathering ministries?" And so it is out of that need, as we have surveyed those requests, that we have put this together, and we are finalizing it. And at the end of this month, we will be launching that course. In addition to that, I also want to share a preview of an upcoming global campaign that we will be also launching at the end of this month. And that is an invitation for fathers to pray and fast over their families once a week. This is a practice actually that I launched with a few fathering groups that I meet with on a regular basis. I launched this idea, its genesis was with a group at my local church that I've been meeting with since October. And it was actually last October where we started this practice. And that was that we decided on a single day where we would come together at the end of that day, but we would pray and fast throughout that day for our families, for our children, for our wives, and for our extended families. And the fruitfulness from that exercise, not only in our group, but more importantly, its ripple impact in our families, has been something that has been truly otherworldly. The blessing, the fruitfulness, the reconciliations that we've seen, the answers to prayer, even the vulnerability in our group has just been something that has been a testament to us, and now to two other groups who have taken on that practice that we have involved. And so there will be some marketing, some storytelling around that experience as it continues to grow. And it is our hope, it is our prayer that this invitation that we are going to launch at the end of this month will be something that sees many more fathering groups participating in as we open up that door. So I believe, just to reiterate, I believe that a spiritual discipline like this is simple and yet sacrificial, and it is an opportunity to be resolute in our commitment and also vulnerable with other men. I think it can have ripple impact across our families and our communities, the region, and the world. And we want to be faithful stewards of what the Lord is beginning to put as far as ideas and visions to us. And so that is one of the ways that we will do that. And so you will get this particular group, you will get some access to some of this material before we launch it publicly. And we're excited, again, to involve you as father leaders, fellow father leaders in this, because simply put, we are, again, stewards of all of the research, the opportunity, the connections, and the network, and we want to see this expand to the furthest corners of the globe. Now, we want to now turn this over to you guys. We want to give you guys a chance to share with us what has been happening in the organizations where you lead. But before we even get into, I guess, the status reports and summaries of what you guys have been doing, we also want to hear from you guys personally. And so we have 2 questions here that I'm going to pose, and then I'm going to pass it over to Wayne, who's going to be the first to answer for us as you guys ponder your responses. So the first question here is, what's at the core of your desire to be the father leader that God has designed you to be? And then the second question is, what are the most pressing needs in the lives of the fathers right now? So as you guys are dwelling on these questions, and as we prepare to hear from you guys for a few minutes, Wayne, would you pick these 2 questions up and would you share with us your responses to these 2 questions?
Yeah, thanks, Micah. My role in life has been kind of exciting. We have 8 kids in our family that the Lord's blessed us with to lead and disciple. And in that, I've had a lot of varied opportunities to really join Jesus, I think, in his movement of redemption in the world. And so I use these big phrases. I worked at a place called the Colson Center for Christian Worldview for a number of years, and worked with Dr. Kathy Cook and with Celebrate Kids. So we do a lot of fathering things. I think for me, when I look at, that first question specifically, what's at the core of my desire to be the dad that God's designed me to be, I think a lot of it has to do really with relationship. I think there's ultimately a relationship that I have to maybe resolve, allow the Lord to redeem and restore, especially when I think about things like masculinity, even like what success looks like in parenting. I loved what Dr. Ken talked about today with flourishing, and that idea, even like replacing my view of success with being a father with a little bit more of flourishing, guiding my kids to flourish. That's been kind of that's something that the Lord's been stirring just even from this conversation that we've had today. But I think really at the core ends up being this relating not only to my kids, but also relating to God and understanding the role that God has me on earth for, with guiding and leading my family, but also relating to the kids, understanding that primary call that the Lord has put on my life, and then also now relating to the different blessings he's given me as a dad. That's kind of at the core for me. And then one of the most pressing, you kind of asked that question, what are the most pressing needs in the lives of fathers, and kind of what they have currently. I think the biggest pressing need, I think, is building a, I don't know, resilience, especially in the world of technology and different things that are happening in culture, and even how our kids are relating to the world and to the culture. It can be really daunting. And so building muscles of resilience and understanding how to do that. And Micah, like you talked about, just having a lot of camaraderie and friendship, partnership, accountability in that journey is really, I think, the primary pressing need that dads have right now to build resilience, is having some of those things. And so, that's kind of the dynamic of how I would answer those questions. I have a deep passion for connecting, dads to that resilience. Dr. Kathy with Celebrate Kids that I work with a lot on. I do a lot of podcast production, and that's how I got connected to her. She talks a lot about resilience and how resilience is bouncing back readily from, an incident that we've had happen in our life. I think building muscles of resilience is really building muscles of bouncing back. And Ron, what you talked about today is really encouraging too, that there are challenging stories that happen in our life. That doesn't have to be the story or the narrative that defines us, but we can bounce back readily and have resilience inside of that. And so that's kind of the passion, some of the things that we have that I love being a part of what we're doing here too, and creating those resources, as Mike has talked about, is one of the ways that we can band together, join in that. And so creating those digital resources, some of the trainings that we'll be going through, really hoping that it works out for everyone to come in person in October. Being in person changes, I think, even this training. It gives accountability. It also gives friendship and partnership in a way that digital just doesn't allow you to do. And so while we are excited about the different digital resources, having these in-person meetings and accountability is going to be really dynamic. So that's what I'm really excited about too, that we're doing here, Micah. So I'll pass it back to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Wayne. So, guys, we have a small enough and intimate enough group here. I have posted the questions again in the chat, and we're just going to go ahead and open this up. For those of you who have now been able to formulate answers or responses to those questions, go ahead and jump in, and then we'll allow each of us a few minutes to respond, and we'll just manage this as is. So, feel free to go ahead and jump right in. Ryan, do you want to start us off?
Sure. Hey, everybody. Just grateful to be here. Thanks so much for hosting this and putting it together. Ron, that story that you just shared about the father whose daughter came home, the emotions that he felt and the decision that he gave her, and then it flipping 180 degrees after he held that baby or after he saw that baby. I mean, that is captivating. I mean, you nailed it. That the story is what gets us, and so I look forward to capturing that and sharing that, with friends, because it's just so powerful. But let me read the question, just make sure I phrase this right. The core of being a father leader, what's at the core? It's connection. I recognize all of the connections and the opportunities that I've had to be with some incredible fathers and some incredible men. They've given me insights that I wouldn't otherwise have. They've removed my shame when there's been shame and failure. They have lifted me up and given me a direction and steps to take when I've needed that. And, I've been blessed with those things. And so I want to pay that forward as often as I can with as many as I can. And so my answer to the second, what's the most pressing needs in the lives of fathers? I think it's the same thing, a connectedness. I think that we get these splashes of inspiration that may come from, a quick, video clip on social media or on a, maybe just a quick conversation. But my question is, how do we allow that to be more consistent in the lives of men? How do we let it come from a biblical source rather than a worldly source? How do we have more of these conversations and host more meetings and more opportunities to remove one another's shame, to lift one another up and encourage one another? And so community is definitely it for me. If you asked fathers, like, hey, go out and, get in community with another father, it'd be like, what? You want to do what? So I think that we can crack that nut and we can say, let me show you a way. Let me give you a couple of tools. Let me give you a group. Let me give you these guys that are out in New York or in Texas or wherever. And, they're doing the good work. And just like Micah talked about this fasting opportunity weekly, it'll keep you plugged in, on mission, thinking about your family, thinking about ways that you can love and lead. And so that's where I'm at.
Thank you, Ryan. All right, we are going to go ahead and open it up. I see we've got Bert, Nick, Marcus, Tony, Aaron. Feel free to unmute and jump in and share a little bit of what's going on, not only with you, but also with the organizations that you're participating with.
Yeah, I guess I'll go ahead first. I'm Bert from Singapore. So it's right about 12:30 a.m. Yeah, and I've been with the Center for Fathering, volunteering with them since 2015. And only after around 2022 when they start to expand, and I joined them full time. Yeah, so I've been with them for almost like 3 years full time. Yeah. And for me, I have 3 children, 18, 20, and 22, and they're still in school. Yeah, still a long way to go. So pertaining to the question, the core of what I'm doing actually I feel very much for the dads around my community because they are always so busy with like just now you mentioned about career, what success look like. I mean, everyone have got their rights to define their success. So with that said, I want them to still put priority in their family, in their children especially. Uh, that's what I've been trying to get to them. And then the second question would be, let me see. Okay, when we come together, if we do come together, it's quite hard for them to open up. It will take a little bit of time. But the main hurdle that I have is to get them out in the first place. Yeah, so I can have workshops open up, and then I can have a registration of like maybe 15 or 20, and actually it's probably like 6 that will turn up, but that's fine. And then when I ask them, how did you come to know about our programs? They said, I really don't know anything. My wife signed me up. So it's usually the case all the time. But I say it's fine. You may not like it for the first 5-10 minutes, but by the time you go home, like 2-3 hours later, I can tell you you're gonna thank your wife, and then you would say the time is well spent. Yeah. So the main thing over here would be like getting them to come on board. That's the main thing. Yeah. And of course, funding is issues globally, our country as well. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Bert. That was good. What else?
I guess I can share. My name is Marcus Griggs. I've actually been doing this work for about 11 years now with a nonprofit, helped to start that in a domestic violence agency. So we deal with domestic violence, sexual assault, human trafficking, that sort of thing. And our funding is actually coming to an AMFAR program. But I've also been doing this with a friend of mine who has a nonprofit called The Man in Me. And then I do some stuff online through blogging and podcasting called A Father Heard. And so I've been, like I said, doing this work for a while. And so I'd say in terms of like how I've been called to do this work is really just trying to figure out how to connect fathers to faith, family, and wellness, and really understanding their role and importance in guarding and governing and guiding their children, and really trying to connect them to purpose, and just really recognizing that they are important. And lots of times dads don't really recognize that, and so just helping them to understand their importance. And I feel like society also tends to not highlight the importance of fathers, and maybe that's been emphasized a little bit more over the past few years, but really just trying to highlight how important fatherhood is. And then I would say the most pressing need is it's easy for guys to talk about, sports and women and cars and things of that nature, but trying to create a space where guys can open up and really talk about what's going on inside of them and really exposing themselves and creating a safe environment for that to happen. And once that can happen, then I feel like it opens them up and frees them up to be able to walk into whatever purpose that might be. So that's who I am.
Marcus, thank you for your long-term commitment there, and just even in hearing this update, I can already sense there are some collaboration opportunities. So thank you for sharing that update. Much appreciated. Nick, you got a report, response, reflections for us?
If I'm muted, yes. So just trying to get my thoughts to narrow it down. I've been doing direct fatherhood work for 20 plus years. Several different agencies, from county agencies to community action agencies to other nonprofits, working within the jail system, the courts, the CPS, social services, faith-based. I'm also a pastor for the last 20 plus years as well. So the importance of fatherhood and those kind of things in the faith-based community as well. Currently in my day job, I work as a home visitor through a Parents as Teachers local affiliate, working with the whole family. I did fatherhood specific programming and still do work with dads within that as well, but it's kind of incorporating the whole family with child development screenings and parenting behaviors and fatherhood and all that stuff within there as well. A little over a year ago, I started a nonprofit in a different area that was really lacking. There's absolutely zero fatherhood stuff, parent education, parent support groups, father support groups through this area of Virginia. It goes across 6 different counties. So been working on getting that up and going as well. Doing fatherhood support groups, we call them circle groups. Participated one last night with some other fathers and men there, with a Native American culture. The church that I belong to, the Lord led me 2.5 years ago, is on a Native American reservation. It's a very small church. It's kind of struggling. they do have a pastor. I've been going there working with some of the men and doing Sunday school classes and working with the children and those kind of things as well, which is important as well. So a little bit around there. So kind of narrow that down a little bit. The core of your desire to be the father leader is really influencing these dads to be the best father they can be with their children. You know, Paul said to Timothy to, you know, where he invested in him to invest in other faithful men who will be able to invest in others as well, or teach us what the word to use. But you kind of think of that ourselves. We're already, what, 2, 3, in some cases 4 generations in the, you know, kids growing up without fathers, you know, and now they're fathering, and now some of them are even grandfathers that are doing that. So to be able to have an impact on these dads, that they can continue to have that impact with their children, and that'll continue down through there, which leads into the next one. You know, in the scriptures, it says that God will visit the iniquity of the children, the father's children to the 3rd and 4th generation. And, you know, being in there, it's at the core there, that desire is to interrupt that pattern. You know what I'm saying? If your father was an alcoholic, there's good chances you're going to be an alcoholic, and so on and so on. Or there was an absent father, then there's chances are you might not be engaged with your kids as well. So to interrupt that cycle and allow the Spirit of God to move in these fathers' lives, to break that cycle and have a positive impact going forward with their kids is a strong desire, as well as you know, just seeing these dads change, the lights go on, and you know, and their encouragement is built up, and their confidence that they have in their parenting role. You know, a lot of dads. I love to do new dad classes, dad to be classes, what I call it, teaching all the basics before they had a baby, and that story that with the young man and he held his baby. That those are awesome. Seeing that stuff and teaching. A lot of times, dads don't feel like they're, you know, it's almost like society teaches that parenting comes natural, but dad is kind of like over here on the side, and to give dad not only the information and knowledge he needs, but the confidence that he can be that parent has a positive impact on that child as well. And just seeing that confidence just radiate through them is just an awesome experience, which I'm sure all you guys know exactly what I'm talking about with that. So at that, I would leave it to whoever's next.
Nick, thank you. Phenomenal. Again, thank you for your faithfulness and what the Lord's called you to. That is exciting to hear, of the fruitfulness there. Tony, Rick, Aaron, any or others?
I'll go next if you like.
Yep, please.
Okay. I'm going to come from this from a slightly different angle because I'm quite a political animal. My background is IT and education. And in 2005, my son was born. He'll be 20 this year. And in 2007, his mother and I separated. And it basically ended up in the family courts. And pretty much in various ways, the battle went on till 2022. So it was about 15 years. It was quite a long time. During that time, I ended up being a regional coordinator for a charity called Families Need Fathers, which is actually how I heard about the Centre for Fathering back in 2010. And part of my work was capacity building and also bringing in some legislation. So I brought in the Shared Parenting Bill in 2010, which incidentally never got implemented. But as a result of that experience and helping probably over 1,000 fathers, sadly, some of them did commit suicide. And that was my chief goal, was to always make sure that I wasn't the person who got that phone call in the morning from the police saying that I was the last person that person had spoken to before usually hanging themselves. So that was always a bit of a burden, knowing that I had to give this person hope, not to do something drastic, because a lot of them are in very, very low places. And one of the things that, after I'd finished the job, one of the things that occurred to me was that the whole court system was an inversion of everything that I'd ever worked with. I'd worked for disability charities, having to say, working in education. The paradigm operated in those spheres, which was to help people, was completely inverted in the family courts, and it never made sense. Even when fathers usually had clear evidence of their child being at risk, the courts would never pay attention to that, and very often they'd punish the father for actually bringing that evidence to court. So a few years, because my degree's in systems analysis and computing, I decided to do a root cause analysis into why we've ended up in this situation, which I call the children industry, because we've heard about the sums of money that are spent on all these programs. I very much regard that all these problems that have been created as a deliberate business model to generate all that wealth for a lot of people that have no interest actually in helping children. So I've become quite, not cynical, but highly skeptical of what's really going on. And I'm going to read you a quote in a minute. And I've discovered this quote about 3 years ago as part of digging down into why we're in this mess. And I'm sure it will resonate with everybody. One of the four elements will resonate with each of you. And it's dated 1948. So this is where this comes from. And I quote, "To achieve world government, it is necessary to remove from the minds of men their individualism, loyalty to family traditions, national patriotism, and religious dogmas." And the person that said that was a guy called Brock Chisholm. And he was the first Director General of the World Health Organization. And he was a Canadian, he was a general, and he was a communist. And fundamentally, I think that encapsulates so many of the problems that we've got. And while it's interesting and it feels good to deal with the symptoms, as a political beast, I want to deal with the cause. And that's my goal now, my core-driven goal, to answer the two questions, to kind of combine them together, is to make sure that statement dies and is destroyed. I'll finish there.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to pull a quick audible here. Ron, we've heard already from four of these guys, and just even with the latest update, your frontline experience, traveling across the country and hosting actually quite a few men coming in, the experiences, the stories that these men bring in, the organizations they represent. My assumption is a lot of what you've just heard here is consistent with what you've heard over the last 20 plus years. Do you have an immediate just observations on these most recent updates that you just heard?
Well, Mike, a good audible. The opportunity to hear from a man's heart was something that it happens when you gather men together on this subject, and you start talking about something that runs as deep as the passions that we're talking about, and the things that affect our environments, the social environment, the political environment, legal environments, technology. There are a number of influences and conversations with men that are direct, that are heartfelt, that are loaded with the opportunity for action beyond just talking. It is a powerful format. And so I'm inspired just by hearing the different sources and issues. So that'd be my immediate reaction.
Thank you, Ron. Dad, do you have any immediate thoughts before we hear real quick?
Absolutely not. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
This is at the core and the lifeblood of making this movement pervasive and complete. So let's keep going.
Rick, I saw you unmute. Would you continue it?
Yeah, I'll jump in here. I don't represent an organization at all. I'm one of those people that heard Ken in the 90s on the radio many times, and I thought I felt called to do what I could to try to help out. I think that's still where I'm at today, is just trying to discern how does God want to use me use my gifts in different ways. So back in the 90s, Ron, I went to one of your classes. You probably don't remember me. I would have been one of, I don't know, how many did you do? 100? Probably several hundred, I suppose. But it touched me and it inspired me. I came back to our church. We did it at our church. And it's connected with the school. We had over 60 guys, 60 dads. And the first time that the church and the school people were just elated, they thought we might get 10. We did it again, had another 40. So within a 6-month time frame, we had touched 100 guys that way, 100 families that way. I've since done it at other churches and then back at our church. So it's been great to use my gifts and however God wants me to do that. So I continue to discern that. I now have retirement in sight, so maybe I'll have more energy to do this sort of thing. I'm now a grandparent, so I get to see that joy, and I also get to see the struggles for my daughter and her husband. He's a great dad. He's really doing what he can, but boy, it's a challenging time to be a parent. Also, in some ways similar to Ron, I'd been in corporate world, only I hung around in it much longer than you did, Ron. Just a few years ago, though, I became the business director at our church, which has a school, as I mentioned. And I see families and guys in particular, it's tough to be a parent these days. And if I were going to pick, what it is they struggle with, it's a variety of things. One is technology, information, the social media, all the devices that their children have access to, and how do they guide their children with that? Boy, what a struggle. And I'm sure probably every generations of dads have said, I'm so glad I'm not a parent. I'm not a dad now because boy, is it tough. And so I'm sympathetic to that, and you know, just trying to support guys as they go through that, and the moms as well. So I see that as a challenge. I see another challenge being it's information overload. They
Mm,
tend to look for their guidance on the internet,
mm,
and they either get some guidance that is like, well, okay, maybe that's okay, but you know, what's the facts behind it? What's the basis behind it? Which was always one of the things that impressed me with the National Center for Fathering. They might have some things that you would go, well, that makes some sense, but they'd have data to back it up. And then it would branch into some other things that's like, I hadn't really thought about some of the satisfaction levels that Ken was talking about earlier. And it helps you kind of brace yourself for the teenage years and all of that, I think is really important for men to understand that there's going to be ebbs and flows to this, and you need to brace yourself and then prepare yourself with steps that you can take. So that's one thing, and then probably the other biggest challenge for men these days, and really for all societies, this hurts me being working at a church right now. There's so many people that don't go to church. You know,
yep.
they say they still believe in God, but they don't go to any church, any denomination. And I can't imagine trying to be a dad without having a faith life, without knowing that God is there with you. And so I see that as maybe the other one. Well, there's a lot of other challenges, but those would be some of them that I would pick for now.
Mm,
So
mm.
good to reconnect with this organization. Good to see you, Ron, and Ken. I've always admired your work too. So thanks for having me be a part of this.
Thank you, Rick. Who else? Go for it, Aaron.
Name's Aaron. I'm actually not with any organization either. But I'm a father. I have two kids. Grew up in a larger extended family, so really enjoyed the blessings of having a large family. So it was neat to see that picture earlier from Ken. Um,
Mm,
I'm involved in a faith community, so just been in that for a long time, and so I have several different men's groups that I'm with. So some of them, most of them fathers, some of them not fathers, in different settings, different scenarios, in and outside the church. But I think one of the core desires, at least for myself, being a better father, and then also potentially impacting friends and other men in the small groups that I'm part of. So I see a lot of, I think Nick was talking about earlier, there's some generations where there's things that are carried on that are negative. And so I see a lot of kind of darkness, or I don't know if you call it curses or whatever else. Um, and but there's kind of a flip side to that. There's another verse, I don't remember it off the top of my head, but talking about basically God gives blessings for 1,000 generations. So just the good things go far beyond um, the negative things that go for a few generations, as bad as that is. So just seeing that in some of the neighbors, some of the friends, wanting to reduce that darkness and wanting to increase the opportunities or pathways, the blessings that come from people following, doing good things, well thoughtful ways. And so there's some good practices that can help to flourish um, good things. So trying to practice those myself, not perfect, but I have a son and a daughter, so it's nice that I can practice kind of both different sides of that and see the blessings of both the different sides of that as well, the joys as a father.
mm,
And then some of the greatest needs, there's a wide range of needs. I know some people without fathers, so not in their life at all, and so I know some that have deep father wounds, and so there's a lot of lack of direction, some anger, a lot of anger, um, dealing with pornography. So even in the church, elders, pastors um, dealing with that, and the churches having to deal with the fallout from that. So a lot of different needs from there. So
mm.
yeah, just I think I've been subscribed to fathers.com for I don't know, probably 10 years. Yeah, it's been a long time, and I'll read articles that come by from time to time, used to get them every Friday, I think it was. Um, yeah, so I'm glad to be part of this, and great to hear everyone else share their stories. Tony, I think it was great to hear your input and feedback. I think there's still a lot of ripples from World War II era events that are still rippling through society. So I think that's great that you pointed that out. Appreciate that. It reminds me of, again, another verse I think somewhere, we wrestle against not against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities in the heavenly places. So yeah, there's a lot of ideas that cause a lot of uh, bad behaviors.
Mm,
So thank you.
mm. Who else? One immediate thought that I'm so appreciative of, and it's been consistent with a lot of the feedback that we've heard over the years. Just Aaron, with you and Rick, there isn't any formal association with an organization. You're just a father who's called to help others. And I know that's the case, seeing a lot of the train the trainer sessions, and then even a lot of these seminars and everything else that goes with the support. To be associated as a father leader with fathers.com does not require a formal association. If anything, that natural and spiritual and relational commitment to your family and then your community, that is deeply admired, and we appreciate your participation in that. The second thought I had is, and Rick acknowledged it, the commitment primarily led by my dad to the scientific literature will continue. And we want to double down on that. We want to see what we're doing not only align with a traditional, what would be termed probably a biblical worldview, but also it be supported by a scientific rigor, a commitment to academia that then is publishable. And we think that that is one of the pieces, the pillars of this organization, and that will continue. So thanks, Rick, for pointing that out and the appreciation for that. All right, let's continue. We've got a few more participants here. Feel free to jump in and respond to those questions. We'll give it a Tony.
This is
pick it up.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Tony.
Tony. I got involved with this right now through the Dad Whisperer. I have a daughter that's 19, and followed her for quite a long time, and then joined fathers.com a few years ago. I'm not involved with any group, but I am involved in 2 different men's groups. And the core is that I want to be able to have some answers from both my daughter, and since I'm a little bit older than most of the guys in my men's groups, I get quite a few questions. Most of the time I don't have answers. And so what Ryan said, Marcus talked about, and Bert mentioned, safety, community, and being able to connect. That's something that wasn't modeled for me very well with my own dad. Excellent dad in so many ways, gave me so many opportunities and gifts. I hate even pointing out any of the negatives, but being able to connect was not one of them. And so I've always struggled there. And the thought of being involved in something as big as what some of you guys have talked about is pretty much overwhelming. So if I could be involved enough just in my small groups to be able to answer questions or be able to model something that would give them the strength to do the things that I wasn't able to do in my own relationship with my wife, who I'm now divorced from, and with my daughter, who I feel close to, but there's still a large gap. I'm all ears, and I need lots of help in that direction. And so it's really, really inspiring to hear the stories that everybody talks about are so important. They are. The stories I've been hearing they give me the energy and the desire to do more than I have. And that won't take much because I haven't done a whole lot. Anyway, with that, I'll pass. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. If anything, it's what you just modeled for us is what Bert references, and that is a commitment to vulnerability that is contagious. And if anything, even within your small group, that can have lasting impact. So I appreciate your participation as well as your vulnerability here and sharing. We got a few more minutes. Anybody else before we step into other the summary, and then we wrap this? I want to be respectful of time. I see just a few others. If any of you guys on audio, you want to jump in and share a response to those questions, I'll give you just a few minutes here.
Micah, while we are waiting, I want to reflect back on something that Ken initiated, and I got involved, and it was a part of our programming, and it was called Well, we were reaching out to dads in challenging situations, and this was a special session early on usually a Friday, Saturday. It was early Saturday morning, 6:30, an unearthly time to ask men to come, 6:30 to 8 in the morning. But it was, and Tony, your reference to some of the challenges you faced were so similar to many of the men that would come, and they would come by themselves. They'd show up at that hour, and they all had a story, but they didn't have community, and they felt isolated and overwhelmed by their issues. And the power of the community of men is something that is amazing, and yet those who need it the most sometimes are not able to make that step. And let me step aside and just ask Ken to reflect, if he would, on that thought.
Gordon Dalby, a good friend, who has written a classic piece, Healing the Masculine Soul, said very clearly, hungry wolves like lone sheep. And so what we have is this isolation, and to the extent that we model emotional transparency and vulnerability, as well as we don't have all the answers, Tony, that doesn't make you any better a father or a guide. Half the challenge, I think, is just showing up and just listening. And so, as Ron mentioned, we would have upwards to 1,000 men on a 2-day event. We would do Friday night, engaging their wives if they wanted to come, and it 1,500, sometimes 2,000. But 20%, and this was over a 15-year period, would show up at 6:30. I said, we're going to do a special session. They had no advance notice, and all I did was prompt and listen. And what was happening there is men were being empowered, strengthened, not only to think they're not alone, whether it's the court system, a ex that accused them of something they didn't do, or anything under the sun. But it was that collective connection that made the difference. Some of these went on to start groups, and that's why I think the small group format that we are going to go all in on, whether it's getting together, as Micah said, and meeting once a week, and just to talk honestly about what are you facing. That is an intangible asset that is way more powerful than we think. So that's one of the things that come to mind, Ron. And it's interesting, as we go read in an incarcerated setting, finally there is a place where they're forced to come to some training where we just open it up, and it becomes the most empowering thing. It's, why hasn't anybody told us about this before or modeled this? And as soon as we get out, he's got a challenge. Either you find a new playground and new playmates, or you're going to recidivate. So to the extent that we have this openness like we have today, and can pass this further in the groups that we're in, is going to be a help. That's what I'd say.
Ron, I'd like to give you one parting opportunity just to share a little bit more summary. One of your first points you made was in training, expressing a sincere care for the participants, a passion to invest in them. Just reflecting over the many years, what has stood out to you that has kept you going in the sense that after year after year after year, what are some thoughts, or maybe even some fruits from that have kept that fire going as you've now? It's just, again, and I just want to pull this back into what Rick shared. This is Rick Storms, who hasn't had an interaction with you in quite a while, and yet you're seeing some of the fruit of that labor. And I think that could be a source of inspiration for a lot of these other father leaders here who are in a similar ministry capacity, serving the men in their community with the time that they have available. What is it like in your position now, reflecting on the years of Train the Trainer seminars?
It is still powerful. And there are two sources. One is the Heavenly Father, who cares so deeply about what each of us do and understands our frailties, our floundering, and loves us anyway. He tells us that he loves us and our kids more than we love our kids. And I always struggle with that one. I thought, I'm nuts about my kids. And God is saying, I love your children more than you do. And so that's one source. The other source is the connection with other men. Just get in touch with other guys, and hopefully you have common bonds. But isolation is how the enemy picks us off. And inspiration is what gets us going with other men. And I have continued to meet with guys. Opportunities just happen all the time. Love your neighbor. Well, they're out there all the time. And who's our neighbor? Well, it's everybody. And the men that are out there are walking along silent. There are opportunities to connect. And if you just say, hey, tell me a little bit about your dad or growing up. Wow, what a can opener to establish a connection. So that continues to inspire me, Micah.
Thank you, Ron. Well, Dad, before I wrap this up, I wanted you to just, I guess, reiterate one point you just made. Our organization has been approached by several other partnering organizations with a desire to do big events, and something that has come up between you and I just over the last many months is your commitment to see fruitfulness in small groups. And in fact, you've been quite resolute, and your vision is such that you want to see that be the focus, because that's where the greatest fruit has been with what you have been participating in. Do you want to share with us a little bit more, just reflecting on what the Promise Keeper era was and what all of those bigger those events now have laid the groundwork for what could be a commitment to small groups?
Agreed. Large gatherings are catalytic. We see here in Kansas City, the middle America, when the Chiefs are victorious in a game, the crowd goes wild. Unfortunately, half of the crowd is drunk, okay, with spirits. And I'm sure it's the same with soccer. America is hosting the World Cup coming up. And what we need is to be concerned what leads up to a catalytic event. Catalytic events do have their value. And I think, in your particular area, there may be opportunity to gather, as you were sharing about having a school, and all of a sudden you got 60 men to show up, and everybody's, what? I didn't know there were that many men. Well, there are of those children. So giving them an opportunity, I think is good. But if you don't have a small connection point that you can process, and that is a healthy environment, the sustaining of your fathering heart can often wane and you wither. And certainly that should be, of course, with the mother of your child, if there's healthy interaction there, but that's not even an opportunity or the case for so many, even on the call today. So as a substitute, you need to be, as one of my long-term friends who's deceased has said, a dad without a small group where he can process the challenges of life is an accident waiting to happen. Now, that doesn't mean you can't, push through, but if you want to achieve what is deep in your heart and help others, that's why we're going to do a Train the Trainer gathering for trainers, and we're just going to put that out there in Middle America, October 27th and 28th. Now, Micah, tell them how they can access this recording, because this may be an encouragement. And we don't expect a lot of people to attend that. There will be a cost. We're working that out. You travel there, you're going to get what we presented, I in particular, as far as both metrics, current research, and resources to fuel you in your passion personally and in the work, whether it's with a next door neighbor or a buddy or a family member that is in need. That's what we're going to do this October.
Yes, indeed. So more details will be published. I want to be prompt and respectful of everyone's time. Thank you for attending. Thank you for participating. Thank you for your input. Just a few parting thoughts for you. The new era now for fathers.com, our desire is actually just a doubling down, a recommitment to what was started in the 90s and what will continue now. One of those efforts will be to be collaborative, is that we are not interested in publishing and deploying content in isolation. And so with that in mind, the participants here will be added to a separate email list where we will be sending out even content ahead of a public launch to make you aware of it, to also to solicit feedback, to make sure that we are right. We intend to be stewards of not only the content, but also the community here. And we want to provide as many opportunities as well for those here that have been given a vision and have been given resources and have been given curriculums, and most of all, have begun gathering stories. We want fathers.com to be a publishing collaborative partner with you and for you. And so a lot of these pieces of this will be published, will be released, as well as a lot of the curriculum and trainings that we have refreshed. We will be releasing to this group first, and you'll hear more about it in the coming month. And yeah, again, the announcement here is that we will be doing a live in-person training October 27th and 28th. The details I will include along with the recording of this webinar in an email to you guys early next week. Again, father leaders, thank you for the opportunity to spend your Saturday here with us. This has been enlightening, fruitful, and much more even than what we anticipated. Ron and Dad, the senior poobahs, man, I got to get over that, but I got to reference it at least a few more times. Thank you, and we look forward to another event maybe next season where you do, in fact, wear those hats for a follow-on call. All right, men, blessings to you, and we look forward to engaging with you again over email and over the next coming events. All right, blessings, men.